Okay, guys, you know the rules. One question at a time, 30 seconds to answer, no hitting, no spitting, and no stupid crap like, what's Lucy Lawless's bra size?
But I knew that one!
As do all sad boys, Josh. Bill, you stats and skinny challenged. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, what's Wedge's last name in Star Wars?
Get serious, Bill. What was I, cloned yesterday? You think I just landed on this planet?
No, because the impact would have killed us all. I'm just warming up, okay? Now answer the damn question.
Antilles. Name the theme park in Westworld.
Ha! Delos. Who came up with the Silver Surfer?
Duh, Jack Kirby, king of comics. Who are the lizard men on Land of the Lost?
Everyone knows that, you idiot. The Slee Stack. Name 3 kinds of kryptonite.
Green, red, and gold. What rock star played on the Star Wars Christmas album?
John Bon Jovi. Name 2 songs off it.
R2-D2, We Wish You a Merry Christmas. And what do you get a Wookiee for Christmas when he already has a comb?
Fastball special, now they're on the attack. And the adamantium claws, they go around his neck. And the helmet's off, all of a sudden they got Cyclops. Optic blasting, now the Juggernaut's lost. Went out the woods, Sabretooth takes a chunk out of Wolverine's side. We can't let it slide, so we're blown back by the wind that storm concocted. Right back into a fist from Colossus. Now the blob drops out of the sky, so Piotr is pinned.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Rollin' 20s. We are the only crew that was turned down by the Great Lakes Avengers. I am Jeremy.
Steve. And Jesse.
We are without V again. She unfortunately is ill this time around. She can't speak. So
that would make things a little difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure hand gestures on a podcast are terribly useful. As always, you can find this show and many others on missionstarpodcast.com. You can subscribe to all of our shows on Stitcher and on iTunes. We, again, are borrowing the music of Adam Warrock at adamwarrock.com. You can find a large discography of his for free, as well as albums for buy on Amazon.com. You can also subscribe to us on Twitter at rolling_20s. Today we use another clip from Welcome to Eltingville. You can find it on YouTube only, unfortunately. It was a pilot on Adult Swim that didn't go past the original episode. We really recommend that you look it up. How was the evening?
Still trying to adjust to this whole day shift thing.
Yeah, we're trying it out a different time schedule. We're going to see how this works. I don't know. I've had some work upheavals recently that have sort of smoothed out. I'm trying to figure out where that's going. Do you know how weird it is to start your first day at a new job and then somebody calls you with the exact same type of job, almost the exact same way of doing it, but still offers you $1.50 an hour more?
Well, it's nice in the respect of more money.
Yeah, but where was all this on Sunday when I was hating myself and complaining about money?
I don't know, dude. It's only been like a week, so honestly, you've lucked out.
Yeah, I know. It's just a lot of people would say, well, just go for the more money, but I'm one of those weird people where I want my word to say something. And besides which, the place I'm working at now, I've worked at before. I understand basically how a lot of the hierarchy is and who I have to answer to. You know, there's something to be said about more money, but I'm walking into a complete unknown. You know, for all I know, they could be insane and gone in weeks. How about you, Jesse? How you doing?
It's unbearably hot. Well, the AC's kicking in finally. But,
where's Bobby Drake when you need him? Okay.
Where is coming down from triple-digit weather.
Yeah, it's one of those...
It's going to be hotter tomorrow, and I get to go to work. Yay.
It's a lot like, I don't know, it's a lot like 2010, I think it was, when I said, let's go to Los Angeles during July. It's cooler.
Oh.
The odd truth of the matter. But it's downright pleasant. It's only going to be in the 90s, and around here, that's a prize. But we'll leave that for another day. We talked last week about how we're going to do one of the unheralded indie books out there, Empowered. It's a very unique version of not just comic books, but kind of the Japanese anime pop culture fad that we went through about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people in the same hobby that I'm in would say the fad hasn't ended. It ended a while ago. You know, now it's back to being just those of us that actually have a chance of understanding it.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still somewhat mainstream, but
only for the conventions.
Well, it's only mainstream in the same way that Psy is mainstream. Very talented and interesting, but way overplayed. You know, Cartoon Network, as much as they launch people into the anime hobby, they kind of they overdid it. But in the trade, we're going to talk about some news. We are finally getting an idea as to what's coming in DC Villains Month. A lot of their A's and B-listers are getting the series, which apparently may take a 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 approach. So some of them may have almost weekly updates, depending on how big they are in the hierarchy. But in addition to it all, there's actually a Forever Evil crossover miniseries coming out during the month.
Okay.
Yeah, think of it as kind of a quasi-inverted Justice League that's shortly going to come together. I'm a little hazy on the details as to why the villains are taking over, but it appears that most of the heroes in the DC universe have vanished and been presumed dead, so the villains are taking their moment. So it's not quite what we postulated earlier on, where we're finally going to get villain monologue. We're actually going to get a world without DC heroes for a short time.
That might prove interesting.
I don't know. This would be more interesting if you told me that suddenly, the Wildstorm and Vertigo heroes were the only ones standing in their way. Let's see how they react when they have a Superman like Majestic who would actually murder somebody rather than let them commit a crime. Granted, that's happened before, but it's New 52. Maybe it'd be something completely different.
Yeah, that would be nice.
But are we ever that lucky?
We shall see.
Yeah. Come on, Jim Lee, do something magical again. Marvel is bringing out a series as a result of the Infinity crossover. Remember how we discussed how since the Avengers have kind of reformatted into their Wake the World profile, several notable Avengers have been kind of on the down low or completely absent?
Yeah.
Okay. They
really got Wasp and Wonder Man.
Yeah. Well, apparently, as a result of Infinity and most of the Avengers being in space dealing with whatever they're dealing with, a group of heroes is going to be brought together to deal with the issues that are still on the Earth. Luke Cage is going to head this one up. And it is about as eclectic as a lineup as I've ever heard of, and this may actually bring in new readers because a majority of them are minority heroes. Follow along with me here. Sam Wilson, the Falcon.
Yep.
I don't know. Otto, Peter Parker, Octavius, the Superior Spider-Man. White Tiger. The current Power Man. There's a new Ronin in this crew. Pulsar, a.k.a. Photon, a.k.a. Captain Marvel, a.k.a. Monica Rambeau. The She-Hulk. And a hero from Marvel's 60s, the Blue Marvel, who was the first major superhero on record according to their timeline, who also happened to be a black man. And when he unmasked for the president in the 1960s to show his identity, the president just said, well, we can't have, in the middle of the civil rights movement, we can't have this major black hero, making people feel uncomfortable, so he was forced into an early retirement. A silent early retirement.
Wow.
It wasn't one of those cases where he was shamed into it. He willingly stepped down for the sake of unity. But that also makes him an interesting figure that somebody managed to drag him out and put him back in his cave. But, looking across it, I don't know what Ronin is, since that's usually somebody who's attempting a little bit of an identity shift, such as Hawkeye and Echo previously. But Otto Octavius and Peter Parker or whatever is in that body, and the She-Hulk are the only white characters out of 7, I think. No, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this is actually a primarily minority crew. It's not exactly a bunch of unknowns either, with Luke Cage, the Falcon, White Tiger, Pulsar, She-Hulk. There's a mixture of old and new in here, and I actually have hope that if this is written at all interestingly, this could turn into something really great. But again, you never know until the first few issues are out.
Yeah.
I mean, how many things have we seen that even could be great but turn sour in the midst?
I've lost count.
Yeah, really? Hang on. Yes?
I need your
With what?
I need to know if you watched this anime movie or not.
Which one?
The Devil something or other.
Oh, The Devil's a Part-Timer? Yeah. It's cute.
It's okay for her? There's no panty shots?
No, it's very cute.
Okay. As long as you...
I've watched 9 episodes of it. It is adorable.
Okay. It's like up to an cute?
No, it's not moe or anything. I'm sorry, guys. Hang on. There's a demon lord who came from another dimension with one of his generals. He's been stripped of all of his magic, and he's now a part-timer at McDonald's trying to make ends meet. And the weirdest part is the hero from his dimension has followed him and is trying to determine whether or not she needs to actually end him, but she works at a call center. They're all finding like new balance in their lives. It's very good.
Alright.
She's fine. Alright, sorry about that.
That's cool.
There has been new movie news. Guardians of the Galaxy's added another name to the cast without naming what the role is. Benicio del Toro. Remember last week we talked about how they added an Oscar winner in Glenn Close? They've added a second one for some reason.
Yeah, that's just... Okay.
Not only that, they haven't named the role. They say he's going to play a lead role of some sort, and he's playing a character that's built to be part of the future of Marvel films. He signed a multi-picture deal. So I'm going to guess whatever his character is, he's not one of the actual Guardians of the Galaxy. He's going to be some kind of supporting character that may play a bigger part in the Marvel cosmos. You know, I don't know what his voice is really like, because he's been in so many movies where he puts on both a believable English accent and he has a heavy Spanish accent. But, you know, it occurs to me he could be Doctor Strange.
Huh.
I know, I'm just throwing darts at a wall, basically, but it's one of the few things I could think of that applies. Also in movie news, Patrick Stewart has remarked on how shooting of X-Men Days of Futures Past has been a tricky endeavor, because there's a lot of people that have roles in it, and when you have that many actors, it's difficult to get all the schedules in one place. He's mentioned that one person in particular seems to be very unavailable and only shoots on very specific days. Some people are of the opinion that he's talking about Jennifer Lawrence, who has to promote the new Hunger Games film, in addition to being pretty much one of the hottest people in Hollywood right now. And to the advantage of her character, Mystique, you know, she could play several roles and technically not be there a day.
True.
Yeah.
But as people will remember, this isn't just the people from First Class, but this is also a bunch of new actors, as well as ones that appeared in previous Sony X-Men films all the way back to the beginning. So this... Yeah, I would not want to be the person that had to book all this. You imagine what the craft services table must look like? All these people with these frickin' demands, as long as nobody wants like red satin cake every day in their trailer. And have you guys seen the announcement of the new DLC character for Injustice?
No.
This, I'm not a fan of the game, but this is kind of a jump the shark moment for me. Scorpion is the new character.
What?
Yeah, not the Marvel Scorpion, the Mortal Kombat Scorpion. Mr. Get Over Here.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking about.
Yeah. They've also added some skins so that several of the characters appear as their Black Lantern incarnations from the War of the Black Lanterns. Fans of this style of game are really excited, but that's not exactly what I was hoping for out of DC, or DC Comics DLC.
Pass.
That's about all I can really say about it. That's nothing to really entice me to play the game if I'm not already a fan. I mean, I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that, but it's... The video I saw of gameplay footage made him look like he was actually kind of overpowered for the game. He teleports, he does fire plumes, he does that hook across the screen, as well as several other powers. If he's not throwing things all over the place, he's literally all over the place.
I understand these guys, made the character, but really, who gave the green light for that?
Ed Boon? I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing I can, it sounds like a character that would be much more difficult to play against if it was controlled by the computer than an actual player. But yeah.
Yeah, I will grant that completely. But unfortunately, it was also one of those cases where I sat through 3 minutes of footage hoping for a really nifty super move, and it was, on my personal level, it was probably on par with about Green Lantern in the game. And for those of you that haven't listened to previous episodes, that's not a great thing. As people who've been on the website know, I'm a convention reporter for Mission Start Podcast. We do this show basically for fun and as an addition. So I like to slip in convention news. Anime Expo is still announcing guests of honor, even though we are only about 25 days away from the con, which is really late. I don't know if
I keep getting emails about that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a problem with just scheduling these things, or if that's a problem with lazy reporting on their part. I just don't know. But the actual convention news I want to talk about is kind of off to the side, because they have a lady named Allison McKnight. She is in charge of panel submissions and accepting them. She got on Facebook because people were upset. There was a host of panels that were rejected. And it seems like there weren't many that were allowed. It turns out there were only 10 fan panels allowed over a 4-day convention. I don't know what they're showing the rest of the time, but that really seems light to me. But that isn't the only part of the story. Here's where it gets weird. Some people took to the Facebook page for Anime Expo to voice their opinion about it, complain in some cases, and others ask questions. She posted on the Facebook page, and it's been removed, but somebody took a screenshot of this. Her response was, "Christ, people, your panel was rejected. I didn't rape your baby. CTFD." And for those of you that don't know, CTFD is calm the fuck down.
Yeah.
She was identified as a manager in the SPJA, the Society for Promotion of Japanese Animation, and she can be upset, she can talk to people, but when your response to people being upset is, "I didn't rape your baby," as a parent of 3, I would prefer if she bent over in front of me so I could give her 3 swift kicks in the ass.
That's not good customer service.
Yeah. The immediate response after that was somebody who said maybe if you did, it would calm them. I don't know if that means rape your baby or what. Her response to that was, maybe. The way people are reacting is ridiculous and embarrassing for them.
Look in the mirror.
Yeah, further on, she said, "I really think there should be a panel on how to deal with having your panel rejected." Is there something about the spring that brings out the bitch in our particular hobby?
I don't know. I'm assuming she just doesn't react to stress well.
No, she's apparently new, and the word I get is that she's a crony of the CEO. Another one of those people. Another one of those people he likes and he put in a position of power, even though she has no previous experience in anything remotely close. So, I don't know if that's true, so grain of salt, but at the same time, there are so many different ways to react to people with a little bit of professionalism and a hair's worth of compassion, and this response had none of it.
Mm-hmm.
She and Jessica Nigri can go scissor each other in a hot tub for all I care. Let's see. Stan Lee was seen on the shoot of another Marvel film. Excuse me. He was seen in the background in Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Okay, well that makes sense. I can't think of a single Marvel movie that he hasn't shown up in yet.
Yeah,
so.
do you think he gets paid for these appearances? Because I imagine he's sitting there just kind of waiting for the royalties checks to come in anyway.
Yeah, because honestly, I think he's just more in it going, what? I get to be in it again? Excellent.
I'm sure he stopped protesting these movies when they finally worked out the royalties deals, and he's just getting richer by the year.
What was that? He has his own
YouTube channel.
Flash thing or something like that. Jesse was showing me. What was that?
I posted the latest one on the Twitter page.
Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, because honestly, that was a pretty low blow towards DC, but yeah, I think that further reinforces just the fact that he really doesn't care. He's having fun with it.
Well, I mean, it's not like he works for Marvel right now, so anything he says, he's just another independent creator at the time. But he has the reputation that whatever he says is still not going to get a whole lot of fire back directed his way.
But honestly, though, the fact that he literally just, in his own voice says, "Don't worry, guys, you'll eventually get it right," and it flashes forward to all those Marvel movies coming out, yeah, the intention's kind of clear.
Yeah, that is kind of an FU. But, he's a legendary creator, and he's 90. He may have just hit that point where, every once in a while he just says whatever he wants and goes back to his tapioca.
Yeah.
Since we're on the subject of Spider-Man, I saw an article the other day about they got a screenshot of the actress who played Gwen Stacy in Spider-Man, and the outfit that Gwen Stacy was wearing is very reminiscent of an old God damn it,
Spider-Man 31, you mean, the death of Gwen Stacy?
Yes.
Yeah, she's wearing something very similar. Whether or not that's a red herring has yet to be seen. Because they have the kind of budget where they could shoot multiple endings just to throw people off track until the movie is out.
Yeah,
so,
I'm taking it with salt.
Yeah, I'm of the mind that would be one of the best things I could ever see on a movie screen is to reenact that scene. But then I'm also of the mind that two things. One, that's not exactly the kind of thing you want your kids to suddenly be exposed to if you don't know it's coming. And two, these movies can take such a far departure from the comic books. There's no guarantee they'll actually go through with it at all.
Yeah.
So
I'm taking it with a grain of salt as well, but
it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. It's something to watch out for, but it's hard to take it seriously until it actually comes to fruition. So we should probably adopt a wait and see on that.
Yeah.
Yes. What?
I was saying, I'm just looking at the article right now. Apparently, Aaron Taylor Johnson, the guy who plays Kick-Ass, is in the runnings for being Quicksilver.
He's in the runnings, but he's always been such a heavy guy to me. So I don't know if he's lost weight that I don't know about, or if maybe he's just going to be a young and chubby Quicksilver. Maybe that'll be the joke. I don't know. I'm not saying that to make fun. I mean, he wouldn't be the first fat speeder out there, but I just don't know what the intention is.
Yeah.
But then again, it's not like he's been definitively cast either, so they may have different ideas.
Yeah. Like I said, in the running.
Yes. And more pictures have come out from the set of Days of Futures Past, including one where it looks like the Beast is jumping on top of Magneto in a fountain of all things. I showed the picture to my wife. She said she had an idea for several captions, and, I understand where she's coming from, and she's starting to scare me.
I do know your wife and her predilections.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The director of Guardians of the Galaxy is apparently studying footage of raccoons to make sure he can get Rocket Raccoon right, which is kind of an interesting statement considering what raccoons do and what Rocket Raccoon does are very different.
Oh.
If I ever find I was just going to say, if I ever find a marsupial digging around in my trash and suddenly brandishes a rifle at me, I'm running. Sorry, sir, but I'm out.
I was going to say, I was playing the Marvel Heroes, and I'm having fun with it. But I was looking through all the costume arms for all the different heroes, and they actually have a Guardians of the Galaxy movie costume for him. or Rocket Raccoon.
Yeah, they've already shown that it looks like the color scheme for the character is going to be gray and red, which is not terrible, but kind of a interesting choice considering most of the concept art for the movie seems to indicate that they'll be wearing, kind of modified spacesuits instead of the military-style uniforms depicted in the comics. Why his is still like that in the game, I'm a little confused. I don't know if that's going to carry over in the movie or not. But
could possibly be easier just because he will be CG.
In that case, you can put him in just about anything, so why does it matter what the uniform is?
Well, I don't know if they're shooting for realism as far as the live action actor type part, and so that's why they're putting those types of people in more spacey looking stuff, whereas, Rocket Raccoon, they're just like, throw him in as, something close to what he's normally recognizable in.
I just hope they make him bigger, because normal raccoon, unless I'm mistaken, is somewhere around 18 inches in length, which would be the approximate height of this thing standing on two legs. I hope they would pump it up to about 3 feet to make it both comically small yet big enough to where carrying like a large firearm is not unfeasible. That's me, though.
Or raccoon.
Yeah, well, yes. There is a qualifying statement there. But speaking of which, there's also a picture from the set of Captain America, the Winter Soldier, that looks like a plainclothes Captain America facing off with his former best friend. It looks like somebody shot it through a window between blinds. Somebody was hiding. So, we'll put that up on the website. And Joss Whedon said something very interesting. And I would like to see him try to direct a few different movies after hearing this. He had a discussion why he thinks there are so few female superheroes who have made it to film, on the big screen. This is his entire response. Quote, toy makers would tell you they won't sell enough, and people will point to the 2 terrible superhero movies that were made and say, you see, it can't be done. It's stupid, and I'm hoping the Hunger Games will lead to a paradigm shift. It's frustrating to me that I don't see anybody developing one of these movies. It actually pisses me off. My daughter watched The Avengers and was like, my favorite characters were the Black Widow and Maria Hill, and I thought, yeah, of course they were. I read a beautiful thing Yunhua Diaz wrote. If you want to make a human being into a monster, deny them, at the cultural level, any reflection of themselves. End quote. It is kind of a sad statement that we have comic books with so many striking individual superheroes on both teams and solo characters, but the movies don't fail necessarily because of a bad script like Catwoman or Supergirl. The movies often fail because no one actually puts anything behind them.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, they spend too much time trying to make the character look unreasonably sexy and don't concentrate as much on the plot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I showed you guys that footage from that independent who wanted to get his hands on the Wonder Woman film. It wasn't like great production because he self-funded, but at the same time, it made me interested in a movie if the character was actually just kicking ass instead of preening or making jokes about, her steel vagina or something weird like that.
Yeah.
If this was an actual action film, I think it would do well because the character is a straightforward warrior all of a sudden.
It would be interesting to actually see that come to fruition.
Well, I mean, if they can get
Whedon's done a lot of strong female characters in his stories. I mean,
yeah, but
obvious one that comes from.
I do think
obvious, but
yeah, I do think it's going to get harder though to get him to agree to these movies unless you give him a special deal. Because if the Avengers 2 does at all close to what the original did, then he's going to be able to write whatever ticket he wants.
Right.
But I mean, if the second Hulk film does well, I would say that's about the time someone should strongly push for a She-Hulk film. Because then you have a strong female character who's also intelligent. She's an attorney in the comic books. So it wouldn't have to be bubble-headed, why does my ass not fit in these tights stuff. Oh, my costume's been ripped again. Oh, no!
Oh, we'll get into that
No, we're going to get into that right now because I'm out of news. We dug backwards a bit and got into a Dark Horse imprint called Empowered. And it is hard to explain in a nutshell. Do you guys want me to try and do this?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. It's a funny story. Adam Warren had already had a pretty good run in comic books. He started out, or at least his career really took off in the 80s when he was doing the American graphic novels for an anime OAV called The Dirty Pair. He ended up working in Marvel in short stints, including, or I should say he worked in Wildstorm for short stints on Gen 13. He moved on to Marvel where he did a rather notorious cult miniseries called The Live Wires, revolving around androids. And then, after he was done with that, he did a little bit of independent work. While he was at a convention, somebody gave him a challenge to write a page comic about a superheroine in bondage. Okay, follow with me here, people, because I can hear some of you tuning out already, and we're recording this days in advance. Follow with me here. He took up the challenge, and when he was done, he got the permission of the requester to post it. His post took off like fire, basically. People wanted to know more about this, and he started writing more and more pages to the point where he had enough to put together a graphic novel. So he finally just took it to Dark Horse, who picked up the book and published it. That was about 6 or 7 years ago. There are now 7 different 180-page volumes of this thing that's turned into its own series. It is about a costume superhero. I think she's a little older than college age. She has a degree, right?
Yeah.
Okay. She has a super suit that grants her all of her powers. Thinks not Tony Stark armor so much as, something. I guess the best description would be like sparkly latex.
Yes. Yeah.
And unfortunately, though, her powers, which give her the Superman, or actually Captain Marvel-style powers of invulnerability, strength, flight, energy blast. The problem... Yes.
Invisibility. That's my favorite power.
Shut up. The problem is, though, is that as soon as the suit is ripped in any way, the powers fade. They're gone. And this suit apparently has about the tensile strength of tissue paper.
Wet tissue paper.
Yeah. She doesn't know where it came from. Somebody mailed it to her one day. But she had a degree in superhero studies and decided that this was her entry into superheroics. And this is the type of world where it's kind of like... I don't know, it's kind of like your anime Nightmare crossed with DC crossed with meth. There are superheroes all over the place with their lame themes. There are supervillains that occasionally have their costume minions. There's psychotics, there's psychics, there's creatures from another dimension, and it all coalesced somehow around this young girl who finds herself as a trainee on the premier super team of her universe, the Super Homies, and that is exactly what you think you just heard. Who treat her like crap, but she's still sticking it through in the hope of becoming a superhero. Have I hit all the notes on this?
Yeah, pretty much. Although you did miss the fact that the suit turns invisible, but she doesn't.
Yeah, well, there's several things that are kind of chronological here that I don't want to hit on, outside of order. Like the fact that when she first signed up with the team, they noticed that she was wearing underwear under her costume because it was just that tight.
Except in her case, it's really actually kind of necessary due to just how weak her suit is.
I know, and I mean, to start,
her panties probably would have better ability to ward off a blow.
Yeah, and the series didn't start out as what it became. I mean, it started out literally as a bunch of incidents where this young girl found herself tied up in different formats because she was just that bad at what she does. Right. I mean, we've talked on this in this short... Wow, that was terrible. We've talked in this show about how there are D-listers and C-listers that sometimes they get elevated because they're on teams where they just can't dig out of that hole. In this character's case, think Z-list. Think someone so pathetic that she has a reputation as an easy mark just to the thugs that these people will hire.
Although that actually saves her in most cases because no one really goes truly serious on her because they don't need to. And everybody knows that.
But she has such a rep that if she actually took someone down, they would beg her to say somebody else did it just because their reputation would be ruined because she arrested them.
Yeah, and these are the thugs, not even like the villains.
Yeah.
These are just like the henchmen.
Yeah, this lady...
people that Batman, takes out, in the old shows with the bath and the whip and... Oh.
Yeah, it's fair to say that this lady doesn't have self-esteem. I don't think it exists. But there is something about the first volume as you read through it. You do kind of cheer for her because she is trying so freaking hard to help people. I mean, even though she knows this thing has all these problems and drawbacks, it's not like she quit.
No, that's very true.
So don't think we're picking on her just because somebody happens to draw her tied up or that she, it's somewhat sexually motivating. There is a story that goes on here that is actually pretty funny. And it gets more complicated, not only at the point where she's dealing with all these disparate personalities, and the occasional time she wins, no one notices. It's like the one time she ran into, oh God, what was his name? She ran into a supervillain. I don't think he ever named himself. Big Iron. That was apparently so pathetic, according to the super homies. They only sent Empowered to deal with her, and this character's name is Empowered. And he was so insulted that he flew away and abandoned his doomsday device. So she showed up saving the day, but nobody even looked at her. And I mean, nobody back at base.
She beat the villain due to her patheticness?
Yeah, she shows up with the device in their lair with it still basically armed, and when she says they need to take a look at it, all they tell her is to just put it over there. They're busy watching TV and drinking beer. This is horrid!
Oh, what was the... Rum, Sodomy, and Lash. Yeah, that was...
RSL something.
Yeah.
Yeah, there used to be 3 of them, and then there was one of them who did all 3 at the same time. So when he tied her up in a lash and he was drinking rum, you can guess what he was about to do next.
And he was defeated by the fact that she was inside a fabric store.
Yeah. I mean, all this sounds ridiculous when you say it out there, but I really think this is something that people should sit down and read, because it's a weird cross-genre type thing. It has enough anime imagery where I think the manga fan should sit down and take a look at this. But as much as it pokes at anime pop culture, there's a lot of comic book stereotypes that are just pushed to the nth degree in this series, and it makes it wonderful.
Yeah. Honestly, I have to say that the humor and the storytelling overall is what gets you to actually continue reading. The little bits of cheesecake and whatnot aren't. I mean, they're so common. It's just like you just tone it out. But the humor and the story actually keep going and keep it fresh.
And it keeps building to the point where one of the thugs of a villain she's up against actually compliments her. It's the first time she's had a compliment in her career, and she imagines taking those compliments, wrapping herself up in them like a blanket, and then just purring herself to sleep.
Yes, that visual's in there.
Yeah, and let alone the guy actually does have interest in her. They actually form a relationship, and I still laugh at the point that she calls him nothing but Thug Boy.
Right.
He hangs out with her around the super homies. His only ability is like a decent-looking bod and a mastery of firearms, yet he has more respect among them than she does. This whole thing is so bizarre.
And then, of course, she's still maintaining her role as a superheroine, and yet he maintained his thug job for a while there, and so they would just sit there and flirt with each other on the job.
Yes. And then, a few days later, she's cooking him blueberry pancakes in nothing but an apron.
Oh yes, the naked ape.
Yes.
Apparently the only thing she knows how to cook.
But, I mean, since we're on the subject of supporting cast, what about when she met her new best friend?
Yes. I had actually forgotten the fact that they had started off as enemies.
Yeah.
But rereading it, I was like, oh yeah, and yeah, the ninja from Brooklyn,
Jersey.
Ninjetti?
Ninjet.
Okay, I just started that
Yeah.
that chapter.
Ninjette. Ninjet. Somebody hired her to capture her and deliver her, but after she had cut the costume and wrapped this poor woman up in a chain and gagged her, of course, which seems to be par for the course for her career as well, the person disappeared. They couldn't pay for her for some reason. So she just released her, and it turns out they formed a friendship because both of their careers, I wouldn't say are going pathetic, but definitely are not going well. But to put it into parlance, Ninjette is a princess from a ninja clan in Jersey who has a beef with another ninja clan from Brooklyn, and I'm not making this up. And half of her special ninja techniques are to allow her to imbibe more alcohol.
Oh yeah.
To say that this girl is a lush, I think, is putting it lightly. I think she could drink Lindsay Lohan under the table.
At the beginning of the description of the character, I was like, oh god, this is some terrible fanfic. Didn't use their alcohol.
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap, there's the enemy right there.
This whole thing, if it wasn't for the fact that it does get very close to NC-17 ratings, I would say this should be a TV show, frankly. But I mean, the thug is sitting waiting for her at home. Empowered comes home, ripped out of her mind. She says, with a friend who declares that now she has a new superpower, and it's called the Spins! But there is one more person of her cast of regular helpers that it is hard to describe. Steve, you want to take a shot at putting this in words?
A cosmic or possibly dimensional entity of enormous power that was single-handedly wiping the floor with her entire super team. And she manages to defeat it. It's actually one of her big wins. But of course, it can't be that easy. And she has to go through the horror of the flashback of the fact that she was rejected by a alien prince scouting out for members of his harem and was denied
because her ass is too wide.
Because her ass was too wide. She does eventually wind up with a complex about that.
Yeah, but instead of releasing her from the bond it placed her in, it allowed her to, quote, keep it. In other words, he'd never untied her.
And so this is what she used to defeat this all-powerful being. It managed to trap it inside this alien bondage device. And then the super homies tell her, well, we can't keep it at our super headquarters, so...
Right, it's not zoned for prisoners. They have a secret hideout that has no brig, and it's not officially zoned to house people.
So yeah, so she winds up taking the damn thing home and throwing it in the closet.
Yeah.
But it has some of the most unbelievable dialogue. I mean, it's essentially this belt that just kind of sits there, but it will not be quiet.
Yeah, they eventually put it on the coffee table because they have nowhere else to put it. And unfortunately, it seems to have full sensory awareness even though it's trapped in this device. It's a little bizarre. The closest thing it has to a name, I guess, would be the Blazing Eye Demon Wolf. It refers to itself as that quite a bit.
Yeah. It always refers to itself in the third person.
Yeah, and its dialogue is... When you say it has the best dialogue, it's not simple dialogue. It's not inherently ironic dialogue. It is a bunch of Scrabble-winning words stringed together in coherent sentences that should not be said by any living being. You know, after it was trapped, and I'm looking at the page, it says, "This cannot be happening to the fusion phallus violator of worlds." Which brings up a whole group of mental images that I have trouble processing through. But I mean, some of the fact that this thing watches all of them and interacts with them, and the occasional time it pisses them off. Do you remember the threat they gave this thing?
No.
At one point, he went off on a rant about something. I don't know what it was, but it was something very personal to one of the characters, who turned around and yelled at it, "If you don't shut up, I will put the Divine Secrets of Ya-Ya Sisterhood in the DVD player on repeat." And there's this silence, and suddenly all you hear is, "I'll be good."
Well, they eventually put him on the coffee table because having him in the closet, he just sat there and bitched and whined because they wouldn't let him watch them
have sex.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let him watch, and that pissed him off even more. He wouldn't shut up. Let me see. The quote is, "The Eldritch 12-cylinder engine of destruction finds himself apocalyptically bored. He craves the scoffing balm of entertainment in any form." So they put him on the coffee table and gave him a Walkman. You know, they let him watch football, and his response is, "Your team's much vaunted short yardage passing game will avail you not, and no accursed tuck rule will save your precious Tom Brady this time."
Of course, an evil alien demon lord would have to be an Oakland Raiders fan.
Yeah, even he won't be a Jets fan at this point. But this whole series gets even weirder when Ninjette tries to teach empowered ninjutsu so she can keep herself safe. The thug is called Pussy Whipped by the blazing-eyed demon wolf still on the coffee table. You know, and she also has kind of an arch nemesis on her own team.
Oh, yeah. But of course, you do eventually find out the backstory to the reason why she's so antagonistic.
Yeah, but it doesn't help that this character is black, but refers to herself as Sista Spooky. And there's no ER at the end of Sista. You know, it's. I guess that's one of the reasons why I really like this series, is that there's really no political correctness about it. They poke at every stereotype and every little joke they can find, not because they're being pithy or they're trying to be edgy, but just because it's their version of funny.
Yep.
And that makes the whole thing even better, in my opinion. It's just comedy for comedy's sake. You know, like the whole debate about when she's in her suit, why she can't wear a cape to cover her rear end.
Yeah.
You know, she's desperate for any sort of coverage because she can't wear anything under the suit, and she would love a cape, but it interferes with her powers. So her suit is even more lame than people assume. You know, but for all the comedy, there is a plot thread that's, at least at points, there is a serious plot that does seem to poke out of here. A lot of it involves the elemental creature, Willie Pete.
Oh god, that thing scares the piss out of me.
Yeah, how can I put this? Imagine something that has the basic form of like Zeus from your old-fashioned Olympic mythology. You know, a lot of hair, huge beard, completely nude, and is basically a living embodiment of nothing but white-hot phosphorus-style fire. That's about the closest I could come. And it is obsessed with just plain chaos. It's kind of like the Heath Ledger version of the Joker. It just wants to do everything and anything that comes to its mind in whichever second it thinks of it. But it has a sexual appetite because, as he points out, everything tends to burn up when he gets close to it. So the closest thing he can find to get any sort of release is the eye socket of a skull. And it doesn't matter if anybody's dead before he starts.
That thing just scares the piss out of me.
I know. When I first read it, it's kind of weird to go through almost 100 pages of laughter, actually over 150 pages of laughter, and then suddenly find something that is really horrific in there. You know, this suddenly was driven up to creepy for one chapter, and then we're back to the comedy somehow. There is something in there to be said about an actual story, but it's kind of few and far between because a lot of it is really the day-to-day adventures of Empowered and her friends, and to a lesser extent Sister Spooky, who I guess we should go into in a few details, because she was Sister Spooky. What's the best way to put that? She was one of us. She was dejected, unattractive, was not getting along well in school with her blonde, good-looking classmates, and somehow managed to make a deal with a demon who gave her magical powers, but unfortunately forgot to put in the controls to basically, take her soul or give her minor magical powers of mayhem. She actually turned to a full-fledged sorceress. So she managed to walk away from the deal with a huge bonus.
And it also fixed her appearance.
Yes, she's also statuesque all of a sudden. So she also has low self-esteem, but she hides it because she had the better deal.
And so anytime she sees this blonde, buxom, beautiful person that is empowered, even though she sucks completely at what she, usually tries to do, she can't actually take pity or anything else. It just immediately triggers that response mechanism, and she just has to lambaste her at every opportunity.
Yeah. But, God, there's no really good way to go around that. She's a very antagonistic character, but it's not like she's an outright,
Villain?
Yeah, she's not exactly an Emma Frost. She's a little nicer than that. She does have purpose, but there are points where you just really wish it would stop. But one of the chapters that comes to mind, especially in the first volume, was when several characters discussed how they got their powers. It turns out that a serious amount of her super homies team got their powers from different venereal diseases.
Whoa.
Be they by having sex with alien robots or aliens themselves.
Wow.
There's at least 3 of them that come to mind.
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, there's... one of them had a girlfriend who was an alien princess that dejected him, and a few days later he started turning slimy. There was the one lady who woke up and said, "What do you mean there might be side effects?" And the response by the guy who's putting his costume back on is, "Well, Dr. Gorshkov, he told me there's slight possibility of mutative effects from contact with me. Nothing to worry about."
Wow.
I don't know what you would consider a proper response to that, because I can't imagine the conversation where you tell somebody you got your powers by super gonorrhea.
That must be a well-kept secret.
Well, it was even better in the same issue, because the reason why she's going through all this is because she's trying to explain everything to Ninjet about what she's just learned, and then she realizes that since she put on the super suit, it's incredibly easy for her all of a sudden to have an orgasm. And Ninjet just kind of stops sipping her beer, looks at her with his narrow face, and says, "Oh, how terrible that sounds for you. How do you live with yourself?" So there's really no other way to describe it.
Yeah. Well, especially since she and Thug Boy usually go at it with her mask on.
Mental images. I'm really surprised I don't hear more people talking about this group of books. It's highly original, but at the same time, just really good to sit down and BS with people over. That's
why we're talking about it.
Yeah, it's really not great for kids. I mean, the one section where they talk about how she has to shave under her suit, otherwise her pubic hair looks like latex-coated steel wool. I'm not paraphrasing.
No, I believe you. I haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah. Or the blazed-eyed demon wolf trying to convince Ninjet to masturbate because he really, really wants to watch. He knows she does it, but he's never seen it, and he wants to see it. That's kind of his thing. And the first volume is especially great when there's a wrap-up chapter of about 10 pages that's almost nothing but the Blaze-Eye Demon Wolf monologuing. There are so many large words in there. If you're not up on your English, you might need a dictionary to get through it, but you'll be very glad when you did.
Oh, thanks for the warning.
But there is the revelation that for some reason her suit is sentient. It's an actual, I don't know about living thing, but it thinks, and it acts on its own occasionally. So I'm not quite sure how all this fits in, let alone I'm still curious who mailed it to her.
Yeah. Not to mention the belt has had conversations with it.
Yeah, it convinces it to let her make phone calls to her mother to find out more details about her. Let me rephrase that, because I think I said it, and even I don't understand what the hell I just said. The Blaze-Eye Demon Wolf, still in this alien bondage device on the coffee table, is using the sentient supersuit, which has an ability to hook up to phone lines, to call Empowered's own mother when she's not around, and ask her details about Empowered's life, just to embarrass her later. It's literally getting her mom to narc on her, as if, the same way parents will embarrass people, embarrass dates you bring over by showing them photos of you naked. That's basically what it's doing by telephone. I mean, what? The more we get into the series, the more I know it's harder to explain, but people just... It is really worth sitting down and putting the time in it. And I know it sounds an awfully big investment for a series of graphic novels, but I mean, it's no harder than trying to read something like the Dark Phoenix saga.
True.
It's not something you should share with your younger siblings by any degree.
Not unless you have that kind of family.
Not until they're at least the age to have a fake ID, I would imagine. But, I mean, it even gets to the point where Empowered has a minor amount of groupies who want to kidnap her and tie her up. They think that's hot.
Oh, what about the kid from the Make-A-Wish that...
Oh, that was freaking twisted.
His request was to tie her up in bondage.
Oh, God.
And through experiencing said pleasure, he decides that he was kind of on the fence about it, but cures himself and decides to make himself a supervillain. Yeah. Just so that he could tie up other people.
And she's his inspiration.
Yep.
It is so twisted. I mean, do you remember what she...
Heroes.
Yeah. Do you remember what she did to the lone gunman?
No.
Oh, that was one of those moments where she actually did something heroic, but it nearly turned out badly, because he's what he sounds like. He's a guy with a gun. And he shot her a few times, and of course her suit ripped and she was worthless. And he decided to berate her before he left, and as soon as he turned his back on her, she ripped what was left of her suit off her chest, off her, like her upper torso, then threw it over his head and pulled it tight because it is a hypermembrane. It's airtight. She tied it around his head until he passed out, and she's basically berating him all of a sudden, talking about how his lungs feel kind of useless and how tight and clingy her suit is, and then she realized it is an airtight hypermembrane. So she had to pull it off his head before she accidentally killed him. She actually had to give him CPR. Let alone there was the one supervillain who had a thing for librarians, and her team volunteered her to dress up as the naughty librarian.
Oh, yes.
There's so many details about this. I mean, it went off well. They captured the guy after a little bit of humiliation, but she came home and she was just showing the costume she had to wear to her boyfriend, who didn't say a word. He just picked her up over his shoulder and ran into the bedroom.
That's all he needs.
Yeah, and this is the kind of stuff this series brings up on such a regular basis. That's why it's so fun for me to read. But when you think about what comes up in the future, I mean, there's encounters with Willie Pete. Sister Spooky has to she has to confront the demon that may have found a way around his particular deal to mess with her. There's Ninjette, who uses her ninja magic to disguise herself as Empowered to up her reputation when she goes out superheroing.
Pointed out that that's not exactly safe for Empowered.
Yes. And then there's Ninjette also dealing with the fact that she may be a princess from a Jersey ninja clan, but she's on the run. She somehow pissed off her clan. That doesn't mean the other clans aren't looking for her. And
There's also the fact that her and Thug Boy had sex during a drunken moment.
I think. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
No, they definitely did, because the belt is blackmailing them.
Oh, okay. I still like the New York ninja clans, because at one point there's 5 of them who are just guys in kind of tracksuits with masks. And they refer to... I nearly died when I was reading on the page. Yo, my ninja, what's happening?
Wow.
Yeah, and then at one point there's 2 other guys in the corner. One is swinging a sword, and the other one's going 496, 497, 498. Yo, hold up. Hold up, ninja. Yo, man, you think when the Oyaboon said to kill this guy and cut him into 1,000 pieces, he meant that literally? And the other one says, you want to question the Oyaboon, my man? 499, 500.
Wow. Yeah.
Damn.
It was brutal, but still hilarious. It's kind of like Battle Royale suddenly crossed with Gilligan's Island somehow. I don't know how much further we can get into this without having a damn near page-by-page discussion, because it goes on, and we've only really covered less than a novel's worth of this series so far.
All over the place.
Yeah. And it just gets more brutal and better. Oh, actually, in Volume 2 is the ninjas. Huh. Okay, I miscounted. It was cut him into 100 pieces.
Still.
Yeah, and I still like it because one of the guys says, it sounds cool, but it is way tedious to actually carry out.
That's just so wrong.
Only thing comes to mind is bring a dustpan.
I would say sponges. But, I don't think I can stress enough how much I would recommend this book to anybody that's like 17 and older. It is sexual innuendo left and right, but at the same time, it is a very unique story.
Yeah.
It's well drawn. The first volume is kind of weird because it has this scratchy style. It doesn't have a whole lot by the way of inks. It's all basically pencils because at this time, Adam Warren still wasn't taking it seriously as a continuation. It just turned into a bunch of short stories he strung together. But by the second...
I think even part of it was still part of that commission.
Yeah, but by the second volume, he had started inking it, so it's much more of a finished black and white look. And I admit, I like it in black and white. I don't think this would do as well in color. That might be a bit too much vibrancy for what he has to do.
Yeah, honestly, the short bursts every now and again, cover art and so forth, it does well enough.
Yeah. And there are a few touching moments in here. There was the guy that captured her and was hanging her upside down, and she does have multi-vision because of the suit, and she detected a tumor in the head of the thug holding onto her and recommended he get help.
Yep.
Because her father died of a sudden aneurysm. It's not exactly her superhero moment, per se. It's not like that's when she decided she was going to jump into a costume. But it was a very real thing to her, and it is one of those traumas. And even though this guy tied her up, he released her, went to the hospital, got diagnosed, got surgery, and then this guy's wife and kids show up. Which is kind of funny because as the wife is trying to understand what happened to her husband, the daughter looks up at Empowered in a ripped-up costume and just says, "My mommy says you're a big skank." But at the same time, she was right. They managed to save this guy's life. And at the end, this little girl looks up at her and says, "I think you're a pretty okay superhero. And I'm pretty sure that my mommy doesn't think you're a big skank anymore. And I'm sorry for what happened to your daddy."
Yep.
And as she's trying to leave the hospital, someone tied her up and threw her in a closet.
And mood killer.
Yeah, I can't win for losing. But at least it does balance itself. It's not all hilarity or just hyper creepiness or weird sexuality. There are moments where she gets to be a hero.
It's almost like watching Scrubs.
No. No, it's not. Because if that blonde got naked in that series, I would have watched a hell of a lot more in that. You know, if she got NC-17 in that series, I think I'd own the Blu-rays. But I mean, Jesse, you've been pretty quiet because you haven't read much. I mean, would you keep reading this Nightmare?
Yes, I would.
It runs the gamut all over the place. If you're not fond of manga-style art, you might have a little difficulty. But if you get past the art and just read the writing and the dialogue and how sharply written this whole thing is, I think you can get past it really quickly.
Yeah, and as we said, the art does improve.
Yes. I don't think the art was ever bad. It wasn't finished before.
True.
You know,
that was probably a poor choice of words.
Yeah, it was like you said. It started as a commission. It moved further into reoccurring hobby, and then he figured out he had a story, so he turned it into one. He had somehow turned this poor loser of a superhero into a story. And that is almost on par with what Joss Whedon did to the Avengers, in my opinion. I can't believe he found enough in this to make a continuation. So I am thoroughly impressed, and I give the guy kudos.
Mm.
I mean, Steve, I think we've covered that you think it's positive, but I mean, you know, what's your overall opinion on all this?
Honestly, it was something that you told me about, and I was just like, okay, yeah. And then I started reading it, and
You went through 4 volumes.
Laughing at one point.
You went through 4 volumes of it in a day.
Yeah. And I was laughing so hard, my roommates had to come in. They were like, what the hell are you reading? I'm trying to explain it. Tears are running down my face. And they're just like, okay. I still think to this day they haven't read it just because they saw my reaction. I was actually more amusing than the actual material at that point. But no, yeah, I would definitely recommend this to anybody of the appropriate age. Then again, I've always been a big fan anyway, just because I liked his original Dirty Pair series too, so it's kind of win-win.
Well, I think we can pretty well call it there, because to get any more in detail in this is just going to require a long 3-hour show, frankly.
Yeah, and I can't really stay up much later than this anyway.
Yeah. So I will try to have the webmaster at least put up a couple covers so you guys get an idea of the kind of art style you're in store for. But if you have a few dollars, you know, start with like 20, go out, get the first volume, see what you think. But I would strongly recommend you go out with 40 and get the first 2, because that's where it really takes its change and turns into the kind of story you're going to get.
Yeah, the first volume starts off with a lot of the mini stories, and it starts getting a good plot going towards the end.
Yeah.
Gets all the major characters introduced, and all her friends anyway, and then the second volume kind of picks up with the actual story.
And by volume 3, there's somebody that hired her for a commercial just to test their new line of bondage gear.
Wow.
Yeah. So it sounds like damn near universal. I wish we could get V's impression, because I think this would be one of the few anime influences she would just have a great time with. But I think it's safe to say, if you guys haven't read it, you should really take a shot at this one, because it is one of the few things out there that probably should get a lot more press than it gets. But in the meantime, I'm actually kind of torn about what to do about next week, because there's 2 things on my mind. I'd like to push back the superhero sexuality for another week or 2, because we have to take another break around July 4th since I have to attend Anime Expo.
Yeah. Apparently, I will be going to 12-hour shifts on the 8th.
You are no fun.
Things even more interesting.
Yeah, you are just no fun. Let's see. How far do we read an all-new X-Men?
I think
that was...
Is it 7?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, because they're up to 11. So there's been a lot more character interaction, including the latest issue where the all-new X-Men encounter the Uncanny Avengers, which is kind of an interesting prospect considering that not only is Rogue on that team, but so is Havoc.
Yeah.
And
should prove interesting.
It did. But maybe I should push that back for one more week because by then I think issue 12 will be out.
Oh no, it's I think it's already not. I think it is already out.
I would have to do some research on that. So I guess it's not a bad idea since that was our first conversation way back when was all new X-Men. So maybe we should pick that up considering it's a maxi series. If 12 is out, that means that's pretty much officially halfway through. Would you guys like to do that, or should we go a little further back in history and find another past series to talk about? Because there has been a lot of interesting stuff that's occurred in comics history.
Yeah. Either one should be fine. Honestly, I wouldn't mind catching up on the X-Men.
Okay, well, yeah, they'll give you a chance to read it. At the same time, maybe we should find something in past history to read first. Let's see. Are there any interesting comic arcs that you can think of that you didn't get a chance to look through? You know what? Crap, I got an idea. How about Avengers vs. X-Men?
Oh.
Okay, that's a little more recent, yeah.
Yeah, the series that got all new X-Men started. Because we had that discussion a few times where it seems like we lost a couple details on what happens in All New X-Men and Uncanny X-Men because it does spin almost directly out of what happened in that series. And I'm not talking reading the whole, 30 associated issues. I'm just talking the 12 main ones.
Oh, 30? Holy crap.
There was a lot of spin-offs and associated issues to Avengers vs. X-Men because if you think about it, those are the two main teams in Marvel. So there was a lot of cross issues of the regular series that bled back into Avengers vs. X-Men. So how about we just read the 12 issues in the main series?
Okay. Sure.
All right, that'll be easier to quantify at least. You guys have anything else to add?
Nope.
I read up on Spectacular Spider-Man the other day.
You mean Superior?
Superior Spider-Man. Oh man, the part where Dr. Octopus got rid of Peter Parker was scary.
Yeah, this is kind of brutal the way he managed to finally pull it off.
Oh, I'm talking about the part that actually brought back to me an old fear of mine from my childhood. Yeah, that's scary.
Okay, all right. I never really delved into it. It was one of those things that I think was kind of sad, but I have a high confidence that with the movie coming out next year, they're going to find a way to put Peter Parker back in that brain.
Yeah, I figured that's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. So I guess that's why it didn't hit me that hard, because I took it with the usual grain of salt. Death in comic books is about as transient as Starbucks. But, yeah, you're right. We should talk about Superior Spider-Man sometime relatively soon, maybe after the Axe break. Or maybe after San Diego. Considering I have to go to that show, too. And I know some of you are listening thinking, oh yeah, your life's horrible. You try arranging hotel and traveling twice to places that don't exactly excite you. We'll see how you feel about that.
Enjoy the heat.
Fuck you very much, Jesse.
Be nice.
My wife's telling me to be nice. I think this is one of those points where I'm going to throw a tantrum.
Don't make me change your diapers.
You can change my diaper in a few years, and you know it. All right, I invite you to roll with us again next week. Don't forget that we are on Twitter at rolling_20s. We tend to put out little bits of opinion and news that we find at random out there. I also put on there that as of recently, I have found a phrase that will define the second half of my life. I am a devout non-believer. You can take that to the motherfucking bank. I am Jeremy.
I'm Steve.
And Jesse.
Thank you very much. And I'm serious about that. I am a fucking non-believer. That little rat shit can die for all I care.
Of which?
Justin Bieber.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm a non-believer.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Hopefully that'll do better in post.
You know a nation's only good as its citizens.